The new girl from another world. The school gates opened and the sun fell softly on the crowd of students entering one by one. Laughter, chatter, and the sound of footsteps filled the morning air. It was just another day at Riverfield High. But then silence. Everyone turned. A tall figure stepped out of the black hovercar parked by the front gate. Her skin was light purple, smooth like glass. Her eyes glowed silver under the sunlight. She didn't blink often. Her hair floated slightly, in the air like it was underwater. She wore the school uniform, but it looked strange on her tall alien body. Her name was Zura Velora, the daughter of the famous alien ambassador from the planet Siriel. The crowd of students stared. Some pulled out their phones. Others whispered. "Is that real? She's an alien, right? I thought they wore spacesuits." But Zura said nothing. Her face was calm, her hands tight on the straps of her school bag. She walked through the gates like she had done it 100 times, even though this was her first time on Earth, her first time in a human school. Inside the main office, Principal Matthews greeted her nervously. "Welcome to Riverfield High, Miss Velora. We're honored to have you." Zura gave a slow nod. "I hope to learn many things here." Her voice was soft but strange, like two notes playing at once. The principal handed her a school map, schedule, and ID card. A soft light blinked on the side of her necklace. She looked down at it for half a second but said nothing. First class. History. She sat in the back. Everyone else avoided the seat next to her. Her hands were folded on the table, her eyes fixed on the teacher. Jake, a quiet boy with messy brown hair and a sketchbook in his lap, kept glancing back at her. "Today we're talking about Earth's World War III, the teacher said. Zura raised her hand. Everyone stared. "Yes, Zura?" the teacher asked awkwardly. "This war killed how many?" Nearly 2 billion. It was a dark time." Zura looked down. "We call that a cold year on my planet." Nobody laughed. No one even blinked. Lunchtime. Zura sat alone under a tree. Her food came in a sealed packet from her planet. Earth food was dangerous for her biology. She pulled out a tiny holographic photo from her pocket. It showed her with her mother and father, smiling. She blinked slowly. Just then, Jake walked up. He sat on the grass, not too close, not too far. "Mind if I sit here?" Zura looked at him. "I do not mind." "I'm Jake," he said, smiling. "I saw your question in history class. You speak really well." "I was trained in human languages. Since I was 6, she replied. "Diplomatic requirement." Jake scratched the back of his neck. "Well, if you need help with Earth stuff, and you can ask me. I know this place pretty well." Zura tilted her head. "Why offer help? Most humans do not even speak to me." Jake shrugged. "Because, maybe, you don't have to be alone." Zura looked down at her necklace again. It blinked twice faster now, later that day in the school hallway. As Zura walked to her next class, a boy suddenly pushed her shoulder. "Hey, space freak, you lost?" The other students laughed. Zura stood still. "I am not lost. You are simply in my way." Her voice was calm, but there was a strange echo to head like the wind behind her words. The boy stepped back, nervous now. Jake saw the whole thing. He walked up fast and stood beside her. "You okay?" he asked. Zura nodded once. But inside, her hand was shaking. She didn't show it. The necklace blinked again. This time it glowed red. That night, Zura sat in her small Earth room, staring at the stars through the window. She placed her fingers on the necklace. "Translate. Alert signal status," she said softly. The necklace spoke in her language. "Threat detected. Unknown source. Stay cautious." Zura's silver eyes narrowed. Someone on Earth was watching her, not because she was different, but because they feared what she might become. Zura walked through the school hall the next morning. Her steps were soft, quiet, but the whispers were louder. "She's creepy. Did you see her eyes? I heard she can read your thoughts." Behind her back, students laughed in small groups. They weren't brave enough to say anything to her face, but their words still reached her ears. Zura's hearing was sharper than humans. She heard everything, but she said nothing. She walked straight, eyes ahead, even when she passed lockers that had her name scratched on them in chalk. Alien witch. Go back to space. Still, she did not stop. Her necklace blinked again. 3 times. She knew what that meant now. Someone had marked her, but she didn't know who. In the library, Jake found her sitting alone again. Books floated in front of her. She wasn't touching them. They just hovered in the air. Jake walked closer and raised an eyebrow. Is that allowed?" he asked. Zura looked up. She blinked once and let the books gently fall back to the table. "No rule says it is not allowed." Jake smiled. "Fair enough." He sat down beside her and pulled out his sketchbook. "You're not doing great here, are you?" he asked. Zura looked confused. "I do not understand the word great in this context." Jake chuckled. "I mean, you look lonely, and everyone's being kind of a jerk." Zura tilted her head, like she was studying him. "Why are you different, Jake?" He shrugged. "Maybe I've always felt like an alien too." That made Zura pause. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small crystal. It glowed blue in the dim library light. "This is a memory shard," she said. "From my home." Jake leaned closer. "Can I see?" She handed it to him carefully. As soon as he touched it, a flash of light appeared, a vision. A planet with twin suns, forests that floated in the sky, and buildings made of light. Jake gasped. "That's your world?" "Yes," Zura said. "But I was never really free there. I was always watched, always prepared to be an ambassador's daughter." She looked down at the table. "Here I thought I could be something new." Later that day, something strange happened. Jake was called into the office. When he came out, he looked pale. "What happened?" Zura asked. Jake frowned. "They said someone sent a complaint, that I was helping you too much, that it's suspicious." Zura's eyes narrowed. "Who would say such a thing?" Jake hesitated. "I think someone is trying to separate us." Zura looked around the hallway. Every face now looked suspicious. Every voice a whisper. Every eye a spy. Her necklace blinked again. Red, slow, dangerous. That evening, Jake sat at home, looking through the memory shard again. Suddenly, his screen flashed. His laptop glitched. A symbol appeared. It wasn't in any human language, just a circle with 3 lines of the same symbol Zura wore on her necklace. Then the screen turned black. Back in her room, Zura connected to the ambassador channel through her necklace. A tiny hologram of her father appeared. He looked tired and angry. "Why haven't you reported?" he said. "I'm adjusting," she replied. "I'm trying to learn like a real student." Her father's eyes burned. "This mission is dangerous. Someone is tracking you, Zura. Not just students. Something older. From before." Zura froze. Before what? But the hologram faded. She looked out her window. Down the street, a black hoverbike sat in the shadows. The rider didn't move. The next morning, when she entered school, a note had been taped to her locker. It was written in a mix of Earth and alien symbols. Jake saw it too. "What does it say?" he asked. Zura didn't speak for a long moment, then she whispered, "She is not welcome here. She will not leave alive." The classroom lights buzzed softly as the lesson began. Students barely paid attention. All eyes kept drifting toward the girl in the corner, Zura. Even now her hands rested perfectly still on the table. Her eyes were locked on the board, but her mind was far away. The message on her locker still echoed in her head. "She is not welcome here. She will not leave alive." Her necklace hadn't stopped blinking since that morning. Something was coming. And she didn't know if she'd survive it. Jake sat 2 seats away. He kept glancing her way. Zura didn't speak much since that note. She hadn't even joined him at lunch. But when the bell rang and class ended, Jake finally stepped closer. Itier tapped her shoulder gently. "Hey," he said. She turned slowly. Jake gave her a small, concerned smile. "I know something's wrong," he said. "And I know you're trying to protect me by staying away, but I'm already in this. You know that, right?" Zura looked away. Her voice was soft. "Being near me is not safe." Jake crossed his arms. "I've eaten lunch with you. Helped you with homework. Got called to the office just for being your friend." He leaned a little closer. "So I think I deserve to ask one thing. Just one." Zura looked at him now. Her silver eyes met his. Jake asked quietly, carefully, "Zura, why are you really here?" Zura didn't speak at first. Then she stood up and said, "Follow me." Jake hesitated, then followed her into the empty science lab. She closed the doctor behind them and pulled out a glowing disc from her bag. She pressed it once. Instantly a field surrounded them. The windows darkened. The door shimmered. No sound could get in or out. Jake stared in awe. "What is this?" Zura whispered. "Privacy field. You wanted truth, I will give it." She pulled something out of her bag, a tiny crystal cube pulsing blue. "This holds genetic codes," she said. "From my people. The council believes humans may hold something we lost long ago." Jake looked confused. "What kind of something?" Zura stared at him. Her voice dropped lower. "Emotional memory." Jake blinked. "What?" She nodded. "My kind evolved past strong emotion. But some of us began to fade. No dreams, no purpose, just survival. That's why I'm here. I'm not just a student." She looked down. "I'm an experiment." Jake stepped back slightly, trying to take it all in. "But what does that mean?" Zura answered with something unexpected. She stepped forward, placed the cube in Jake's palm. "Hold it. Think of something that made you cry." Jake froze. I don't cry," he said awkwardly. "Please," she said. "Try." Jake looked down at the glowing cube. Slowly, his expression changed. "My mom's old photo," he whispered. "She passed away when I was 10. I still keep it near my bed." The cube pulsed brighter. Zura closed her eyes. Her body trembled. Her necklace turned blue for the first time. "I feel it," she whispered. "I remember it. It's beautiful." She suddenly gasped and took a step back. Jake rushed forward. "Zura? Are you okay?" She nodded, breathing fast. "I wasn't supposed to connect with you this deeply." Jake frowned. "But I'm not a scientist. I'm just a normal guy." Zura looked into his eyes and said, "That's exactly why it works." Suddenly, the room's walls shook. The privacy field cracked. Zura grabbed the disc, turned it off. They rushed into the hallway and froze. Smoke drifted from the girls' locker room. Students screamed and ran the other way. Zura's necklace glowed, red hot now. "Something's wrong," she whispered. Jake followed her into the smoke. Inside, the locker room door was blown open. Sparks rained from the ceiling, and on the floor, Zura's bag. It had been slashed open. But worse, her cube was missing. Jake looked around. Who would take it? Zura bent down and picked up a small metal piece from the ground. It had a symbol, 3 black circles in a triangle. Her eyes went wide. "No, it can't be," Jake asked. "What is it?" Zura said one word, her voice shaking. "Hunters." The smoke had cleared, but something had changed. The school felt colder. Zura's cube was gone. The symbol left behind, 3 black circles, was ancient. One she hoped never to see again, but it was real now. She sat alone on the library steps after school. The sun was setting, her shoulders were lower, her glow dimmer. The necklace, once blinking red with warning, now pulsed in a dull, steady pattern. Jake found her there silent. "Zura?" She didn't answer. He sat beside her carefully. "I looked everywhere. No sign of who took it," he said. Zura finally spoke. "They are called hunters. From deep space. They don't speak. They don't ask, they only take. They steal from the weak. Jake frowned. Why would they come for you? Zura looked straight ahead. They weren't after me. They were after the connection. Jake's brows pulled together. You mean the memory cube? No, she said softly. You. Later that night, Jake's phone buzzed. But there was no number, just one message. Step away from her. You have 3 days. He stared at it, hands shaking slightly. He didn't show it to Zura the next morning. Instead, he showed up with something else, a small silver chain. At the end, a blue crystal, the same color as Zura's lost cube. It's not the real thing, he said. But maybe it'll remind you who you are. Zura touched the fake crystal and smiled for the first time in days. It reminds me of you, she said. And then, for the first time since she arrived, she laughed softly but real. But their peace didn't last. That afternoon, Zura was called to the principal's office again. Jake tried to follow, but a guard stopped him at the door. Inside, Principal Matthews looked nervous. On the desk sat a floating screen showing a blurry image. An unknown figure entering the school at night, tall, covered in black armor, and a glowing symbol on the chest. 3 black circles. Zura's voice dropped to a whisper. It's them. They're already here. Principal Matthews tapped a file. The ambassador says if there's one more incident, you're to be pulled off Earth immediately. Zura felt something strange in her chest. Fear? No. Something sharper. Anger. She stormed out of the office. Jake was waiting. They're sending me back, she said. But I don't want to go, not now. Jake followed her through the hallway. Then don't. Zura stopped. It's not that simple. Yes, it is, Jake said firmly. You're not a tool. You're not a test. You're a person, and you have a right to stay. Zura stared at him. She had studied human law, human emotions, human literature. But she had never understood loyalty, not until this moment. You're not just different, Jake, she said. You're rare. Jake smiled. So are you. The next day, things grew worse. In the middle of gym class, a power outage struck. Lights burst, screens cracked, phones went dark. When they came back on, every screen in the school flashed the same message. We are here, students screamed. Teachers panicked. The building was evacuated. But Zura and Jake didn't run. They knew it wasn't over. In the quiet of the empty hallway, Zura turned to Jake. I don't want to be afraid anymore. Jake nodded. Then let's face them. Together. They made their way to the basement where Zura had once felt a strange presence. Now she knew something was hidden there. Behind the old janitor's door, they found a hatch. Zura placed her hand on it. It opened. Below them was a glowing chamber not built by humans. Jake's eyes widened. Is this alien? Zura nodded. Not mine. Something older. They climbed down slowly. At the center of the room was a tall device, and floating inside it, her cube. But it wasn't alone. Beside it, a figure stood in the shadows. Black armor. No face. Silent. A hunter. Zura froze. Her heart pounded. Jake whispered, What do we do? Zura's voice trembled. We do not run. The walls of the underground chamber pulsed with a dim green light. Zura took a slow step forward. Her eyes didn't leave the figure standing beside her floating cube. The hunter didn't move. It stood like a statue. Tall, silent, deadly. Jake whispered beside her. Is it alive? Zura nodded slightly. Very much. The cube glowed brighter as she stepped closer. It reacted to her presence. But then, so did the hunter. It turned. Its face had no eyes, no mouth, just a black, smooth surface. But Zura could feel it looking at her. Then the symbols on its chest lit up. 3 black circles in a glowing triangle. Zura's necklace burned red. Jake stepped in front of her without thinking. "Stay back," he shouted. The hunter didn't flinch. Instead, it raised one long hand and pointed straight at Jake. Zura's heart dropped. "He's the target," she whispered. "Not me." Suddenly, the lights flickered. The floor beneath them vibrated. The machine holding the cube started humming, loud high rising. Jake turned. "What's happening?" Zura's eyes widened. "They're trying to open a gate." Jake blinked. "A what?" "A space-folding bridge," she said quickly. "To bring more hunters here." Before Jake could respond, the hunter moved. Fast. It dashed forward like a shadow, silent and sudden. Jake pulled Zura down just in time. Its hand swiped the air where his head had been. They rolled behind the machine. Sparks flew as the hunter's arm sliced through a control panel. Zura stood, hands glowing now. Blue light swirled in her palms. Jake gasped. "You have powers?" Zura replied. "Not powers. Just memory energy. Your emotions gave it back to me." She raised her hand and launched a shock of light at the hunter. The hunter stumbled back, but only for a moment. Then it roared, not with sound, but with pure energy. The walls cracked. The gate machine trembled. Jake covered his ears. Zura screamed, in pain. The hunter rushed forward again. Jake saw a loose metal rod on the ground. He grabbed it, though he knew it was useless, and swung. To his surprise, it hit something soft. The hunter dropped to one knee. Zura looked up. "You heard it," Jake gasped. "How?" Zura's voice shook, because it wasn't expecting resistance. From a human. Jake threw the rod again, but this time the hunter caught it mid-air and crushed it in its fingers. Zura rushed forward and grabbed the cube from the machine. The moment she touched it, her necklace turned white. Everything stopped. Even the hunter. It tilted its head. Zura's eyes began to glow completely. Then she spoke, not in English, but in her ancient language. The chamber echoed with strange, musical words. The cube floated above her palm. "Memory restored," she whispered. The machine exploded in sparks. The unfinished gate collapsed in a wave of energy. The hunter screamed again, but now it sounded like a dying engine. Zura stepped forward and raised her hand. "Leave this place," she commanded. The hunter didn't move, until Jake stepped beside her and held her hand. The hunter looked at both of them, alien and human, side by side, and then it vanished, disintegrated into dust. Silence. The lights in the chamber dimmed. Zura dropped to her knees, shaking. Jake held her. "You did it," he whispered. "You stopped it." Zura shook her head. "No, I delayed it." She looked up at him, her voice soft. "There are more. They will come. And now, they know about you." Jake blinked. "Me?" Zura nodded. "You carry something in you. A kind of emotional strength we thought was lost forever." She looked away. "That's why I was sent. But now, I don't care about the mission anymore." Jake held her hand tighter. "What do you care about now?" Zura looked into his eyes. "You." Suddenly her necklace blinked red again. One last signal appeared in the air, an image of a dark ship entering Earth's orbit. Jake's eyes widened. "They're already here?" Zura nodded. "They're not coming for war." Jake looked confused. "Then what?" She stood slowly, her glow returning. "They're coming to take you." The sky above Riverfield was no longer blue. By morning, clouds had darkened unnaturally. People said a storm was coming. They were wrong. It wasn't a storm. It was a ship. In the school courtyard, students gathered in silence. Teachers had no answers. Phones didn't work. News channels were blacked out, but above them all, floating high and silent, a black oval ship blocked the sun. It didn't move. It didn't speak. It only watched. Jake stood by Zura, his heart pounding. "You said, they're here for me?" Zura didn't look away from the sky. "They believe you're the source of emotional reawakening," she whispered. You touched the cube. You triggered something inside me. You are living proof. That emotion still has power. Jake scoffed, nervous. I'm just a kid. Zura finally turned to him. You are more. You just don't believe it yet. That evening, the first message came. Not on Earth's networks, not by sound, but through Zura. Her necklace lit up with a blinding white pulse. She gasped and dropped, to her knees. Jake rushed to her side. Zura? A hologram shot out from her chest crystal. A tall, thin being appeared. No face, long limbs, symbols across its skin. The voice came, not spoken, but straight into Jake's mind. Human. You carry dangerous influence. You are a threat to galactic stability. Jake clenched his fists. So what? You want to erase feelings from the universe? The voice continued. Emotion breeds war, pain, chaos. We buried it to build peace. Jake stood firm. Maybe. But emotion is also love, loyalty, courage, everything that makes us alive. The light dimmed. The final message was clear. Surrender yourself, or Earth will be silenced. Silence. Jake stared at the floor, trembling. Zura stood slowly beside him. You have a choice, she said. If you give yourself to them, they may leave Earth alone. Jake looked up at her, surprised. You're not stopping me? Zura shook her head. No, because what you choose now will define what it means to be human. That night, Jake stood alone under the black ship's shadow. The streets were empty. Everyone had locked themselves inside their homes. One human boy, one giant alien ship, and one impossible decision. He didn't speak. He just waited. But he wasn't alone for long. Zura appeared beside him. You're crazy, she said quietly. Jake smiled a little. You too. She held out her hand. He took it. Suddenly, a beam of light shot down from the ship, swallowing them both. They were pulled into silence. No gravity, no sound. Just light and metal. Jake opened his eyes. They stood in a glass room. Around them, floating figures stared. Silent hunters. One stepped forward. Its voice echoed in their minds. Emotion must end. This is your last moment. Jake looked to Zura, then stepped forward. You're wrong, he said. Emotion doesn't destroy worlds. It saves them. The hunters remained still. Jake pulled out something from his pocket. Zura's fake memory crystal. He held it up. It's not real, he said. But it holds something more powerful than data. It holds hope. The hunters tilted their heads. Hope? Zura stepped forward too. It's something you've forgotten, but humans still carry it. And so do I. Jake looked up at them. You don't need to erase emotion. You need to remember it. Suddenly, the glass around them lit up. A million images flashed. War, pain, fear, but also laughter, birth, friendship, forgiveness. Memories from both Earth and Siriel, all mixed together. Zura gasped. It's a memory merge, she whispered. They're feeling it again. The hunters trembled. One by one. They started to glow. Then they disappeared, vanished into soft light. The ship above Earth blinked once and began to rise. No destruction, no invasion, just silence and peace. Back on Earth, the sky slowly cleared. The sun returned. People came out of their homes, blinking, confused but safe. Jake and Zura stood alone in the field, breathing, alive. Jake smiled. So, what now? Zura looked at him with a soft smile. We changed something. Jake looked up. No, he said. You changed something. Zura turned her gaze to the stars, and now they'll be watching. It had been 3 days since the black ship disappeared from Earth's sky. 3 days of silence. No more red lights, no more strange messages, no more whispers of war. The students returned to Riverfield High, but nothing felt the same. People spoke softer, watched the stars more. and for the first time they smiled when they saw Zura walk through the halls. But she still felt different, because in her heart, she knew something had changed, and a choice still waited. Zura stood by the school fountain during lunch. Jake sat on the edge, his sketchbook in his lap. He had drawn her again, this time not as a strange alien girl, but as someone laughing. Someone free. Zura stared at the picture and smiled. "I don't look like that," she said softly. Jake smiled. "That's how I see you." Zura tilted her head. "Strange how your vision makes me feel, like I belong." Jake closed the sketchbook and looked at her seriously. "So when are they coming to take you back?" Zura was quiet for a moment. "They're not," she said. "My father sent a message. The council decided I've completed my mission." Jake looked surprised. "So, you're free now?" She nodded. "I can go home. Or stay." Jake held his breath. Zura looked up at the sky. "My people will always see Earth as wild, loud, emotional. But after being here, after meeting you," she looked into his eyes, "I think that's what makes Earth beautiful." Later that evening, Zura visited the hill behind the school, the same place she had stood when she first saw Earth's moon. Now she stood there again, holding two things, her glowing memory cube and Jake's fake crystal necklace. She placed both on a flat stone. "This one holds my people's knowledge," she whispered, "and this one holds my first real friendship." Behind her, Jake approached quietly. "You're going to decide now, aren't you?" he asked. Zura nodded. "If I leave, I'll return to comfort, status, and order." She looked back at the school lights in the distance. "If I stay, I'll face confusion, mistakes, and questions." Jake stepped beside her. "But maybe," he said, "you'll also find yourself." The next morning, students gathered in the schoolyard. A silver transport pod hummed at the edge of the parking lot. Ambassador Vel Laura himself stood by it, tall and glowing. He waited for his daughter. Zura walked toward him, her steps calm. Jake watched from the crowd, heart pounding. The ambassador spoke in a soft, stern voice. "You've done well. It's time to come home." Zura looked up at her father, then looked back at Jake. And then she did something no one expected. She turned away from the pod. "No," she said. Gasps rippled through the students. Even her father stepped back in shock. Zura held up the memory cube. "I'm not done learning," she said. "I want to see what more this world can teach me." She looked at Jake, her voice softening. "And I want to see it with him." Jake's face lit up, but he didn't cheer. He simply stepped forward and stood beside her, just like he always had. The ambassador didn't smile, but his eyes softened. "Then make Earth proud," he said, "as a daughter of Siriel, and now as one of them." He stepped back into the pod, and just like that, he was gone. Weeks passed. Zura stayed at Riverfield. She joined clubs, learned Earth music, even tried human food with caution, and slowly, the students who once whispered began waving, sitting with her, laughing with her. She wasn't just the alien girl anymore, she was Zura. One evening under the stars, she sat beside Jake on the hill again. Jake pointed upward. "That one's Orion," he said. "It's a hunter." Zura smirked. "Not all hunters are bad. Some just need a reason to stop hunting." Jake turned to her. "You gave them a reason." Zura touched his hand. "You gave me one." They sat in silence, one human, one alien, no longer different, just friends, maybe something more. Because in the end, Zura wasn't from Earth, but she had found something far greater than any mission, a place to belong, a friend to trust, and a feeling called home. The end.